Ever wondered what would happen if you took every one of your favorite Pokemon characters, trapped them on an island, and forced them to live completely normal everyday lives? No battles, no gyms, no saving the world, just relationships, arguments, and grown adults throwing objects at each other in public. A few months ago, I turned Tomodachi life into a Pokemon simulator and created Orange Island, a community filled with trainers, rivals, champions, villains, and their partner Pokemon. And you guys loved it so much that I had to return for part 2. But if you thought the first episode went deep, get ready to go deeper than Ash's determination for Pikachu to land a Thunderbolt. Because this time, Orange Island produced some of the craziest ships imaginable. Ships that would make even the SSN blush. We're going deeper than Brock trying to land a 10. Like, bro, chill. Join the queue. Because one resident became so obsessed with somebody that he started seeing them in the sky. A completely unexpected friendship began turning into something much bigger. But before Orange Island became Pokemon's Love Island with absolutely no adult supervision, it all began with Red. Because after everything that happened in the first episode, Red still had feelings for Plumeria. And against all logic, common sense, and clearly visible warning signs, he had decided to confess. When I returned to Orange Island, everything initially appeared normal. Residents were walking around, friendships were growing, Brock had released an official autobiography, normal island behavior. I had finally created Brock some custom clothing, meaning he no longer looked like a random man who wandered onto the island after losing his luggage. He actually looked like Brock. And the new outfit apparently gave him enough confidence to become an author. I'm assuming the book was titled How to Approach Women, 700 Techniques That Have Never Worked. The book included several inspirational chapters like How to Fall in Love Within 4 Seconds, How to Be Dragged Away by Misty, and the international bestseller, She Said No, but perhaps she didn't hear me the first 46 times. Brock then told Janine to look into the sky because he could see a cloud shaped like a shiny Celebi, which sounded wholesome. Until I remembered, this was Brock. This was either a genuine observation or the opening move in a strategy that he had been developing since 1998. But while Brock was pretending to be a functional member of society, Red had something much more serious planned. He wanted to confess his feelings to Plumeria. This wasn't going to be some half-hearted confession beside a vending machine either. I brought them to the beach. I gave Red a present. I even created a custom Salazzle for him to give to Plumeria. Everything was perfect. The ocean was beautiful. Red finally approached her and revealed how he felt. And then Professor Oak appeared. Of course he did. Why are you here? This was supposed to be a romantic confession, but Oak wasn't there to offer Red advice. Professor Oak announced that he was also in love with Plumeria. I'm sorry, this man saw a young trainer confessing his feelings and immediately turned it into a double battle? Red had spent his entire life earning badges, defeating Team Rocket, and becoming one of the strongest trainers alive, only to be challenged romantically by a pensioner who can't remember his grandson's name. Plumeria now had two choices: Red, the silent hero of Kanto, or Professor Oak, a man who sends 10-year-olds into the wilderness to complete his research for him. And Plumeria chose neither of them. She rejected them both. Oak took the rejection surprisingly well. Red did not. Red arrived at the beach carrying hope, confidence, and a handcrafted Salazzle, and left looking like the opening piano from Welcome to the Black Parade had started playing inside his head. He spent the next several days sitting alone at the beach, and while Red was mourning a relationship that technically never existed, my character had begun developing feelings for Skylar. So the island now had two romantic stories. One involved a man who refused to take a hint, and the other involved me, who would eventually prove physically incapable of making a move. But the residents weren't going to stop living just because Red had transformed the beach into his personal music video. Orange Island needed to keep growing. So I returned to the wheel, and our next resident was Hassel. Hassel immediately began repeatedly flicking the streetlights on and off. Maybe he was adjusting to island life. Maybe he was sending a message. Maybe the Elite Four had recently introduced dementia testing? I don't know, but watching a respected dragon-type specialist aggressively communicate with a street lamp did not fill me with confidence. Fortunately, Brock went to check on Red and managed to cheer him up. which meant Brock's autobiography had already achieved more emotional success than any of its romantic advice ever would. But hidden beneath all this chaos, one seemingly significant friendship began. Guzma wanted to meet Zinnia. At the time, I didn't think much about it. They came from completely different regions. They never had interacted. There was absolutely no reason for these two characters to become important to one another. But Orange Island has already demonstrated that it didn't care about canon. I built the residents, but the residents were beginning to build the story. The existing love triangle between Ash, Serena, and Misty was also getting worse. Misty liked Ash, Serena liked Ash. Ash liked adventure, battling, and possessing no understanding of romantic subtext. I returned to the character customization. Tucker finally received proper clothing. Lance also received a custom outfit, although creating him without his cape was kinda difficult. Tomodachi life allows Professor Oak to invade private confessions, but custom cape dimensions were apparently beyond modern game technology. The clothing editor still desperately needs options for collars, width, length, and layering. Not potentially in an update from the beginning. Because creating Pokemon characters with these limitations sometimes feels like building a Charizard using 3 rectangles and the power of prayer. Red began creeping behind Zinnia while repeatedly transforming his face. Nope. Absolutely not. Plumeria rejected this man once and he immediately became a skinwalker. Our next resident was Piers, finally bringing some musical talent to the island. Although Tucker was already standing alone in the street doing the Fortnite dance, so perhaps the entertainment industry was doing fine. Lily was taking a casual walk when she suddenly locked eyes with Arvin. Her heart skipped approximately 10 beats, which is either love at first sight or she needs urgent medical attention. Lily had no idea how to speak to him, so instead she began JoJo posing, an ancient and respectful romantic technique. The island was becoming overcrowded, but apparently every resident had decided communal living was the answer to all their problems. Lily and Cynthia were still awkward after their previous argument. The wheel selected Hala next. I created him a festival-themed house and immediately made his outfit so he looked the part. Hala was wise, respected, dignified. Surely he would remain above all the island ridiculous romantic drama. Keep that sentence in mind, because almost immediately afterwards, Jesse and Max moved in together. What did they have that is possibly in common? Pokemon contests? Tax evasion? Hala and Kukui became good friends and Oleana was the next character introduced. I had overlooked Oleana when creating the original cast, but her design is genuinely interesting. She also looks one unread email away from destroying an entire company, so she fits perfectly. Then I realized I had spent most of the video creating trainers without creating many actual Pokemon. So it was time for Tips with Tourism. First, I created Arbok for Jessie. With the new sprite technique, making Pokemon became significantly easier. I began at the smallest pixel size so I wouldn't have to move huge distances for each individual block. Then, whenever the design was symmetrical, I only drew one side. Once that half was finished, I copied it, flipped it, and scaled everything upward. Because the game doesn't blur the image, it remained perfectly sharp at full size. I spent days suffering over Pokemon pixel art in the first video, and the answer was essentially draw less. That has been Tips with Torisu. Please do not use this information to treat any serious medical condition. Jessie loved her Arbok. James received a custom Weezing, and Lily and Cynthia finally appeared close to fixing their friendship. The next resident was Melanie, who immediately received her proper outfit. And then the game created the most unstable household in Pokemon history. Ash and Serena wanted to move in together. Great, except Misty joined them. Ash, Serena, Misty, all living under the same roof. That was not a house. That was a live explosive with a dining room. Jessie and James also became friends after bonding over their favourite shared activity, trying to steal Pikachu. After decades of failing, it was beautiful to see them connect through their complete refusal to develop a new career. The island expanded. New feelings began appearing everywhere. Because it was winter in Australia, I transformed Orange Island for the season. Snow covered the streets. The residents adapted surprisingly well. The island looked beautiful. Cramped, but beautiful. Red continued seeing Plumeria in the clouds. I added a beach play area and an enormous glowing Pokeball landmark. Orange Island finally looked like a proper Pokemon destination. Zinnia and Lily became friends and gave each other the nicknames Drag Girl and Lilip. Then Gladian arrived, because when an island already contains fighting, stalking, and multiple unstable relationships, the obvious solution is adding Gladian. But in the background, something important was changing. Guzma had started thinking about Zinnia constantly, and it wasn't friendship anymore. Guzma was developing feelings for her. Before anybody begins preparing a strongly worded comment, Zinnia is generally considered to be in her early 20s, while Guzma appears to be in his mid-20s. I created Guzma's proper Team Skull uniform because if relationships went anywhere, he couldn't do it while dressed like somebody's uncle at a barbecue. Arvin spoke with Serena and officially moved into the Ash, Serena and Misty house. That building now contained Ash, both of his potential love interests, and the person Lily was dreaming about confessing to. This was no longer a home, this was a romantic containment facility. My feelings for Skylar were also growing. While we walked together, she almost stepped into a puddle, and I heroically threw a towel across it. Unfortunately, she had already walked past it. But romance isn't about timing, which was fortunate because mine was terrible. Plumeria was warming herself near the fire when Hala crossed her path, and Hala immediately fell head over heels for her. Yeah, you remember when I said he was dignified above the drama? That lasted well. Hala attempted to blow a heart-shaped wink towards Plumeria. She saw it coming and dodged, and attempted to catch a butterfly. That event contributed nothing to the plot. I simply needed everybody to witness N chasing a butterfly. Cynthia and May met and bonded incredibly well. Perhaps because they were both driven. Perhaps because they were both experienced trainers, or perhaps because they were literally discussing how much they love stealing Pikachu.
Day and night. I really am totally obsessed with stealing Pikachu.
If you'd like, I could talk to you about it non-stop.
I would like nothing more.
Zinnia and Lily then started fighting. I don't know what it is about Lily, but this girl creates conflict everywhere she goes. Skylar then lost her favourite vinyl record. I helped her search for it, and I found it. I stood directly behind her holding the thing she had been searching everywhere for. I have completed the romantic side quest. Finally, she noticed, and for one brief moment, it felt as though she finally understood how much I cared about her. Cupid had reached Orange Island. Unfortunately, Cupid was also very overwhelmed by the workload. The wheel then selected Rayford, and with her arrival, Orange Island finally became larger. I rebuilt the entire community. The residents received a proper suburb, the shops formed a town square, I added more beaches, ports and parks. Orange Island was finally no longer a tiny overcrowded experiment. It had become an actual Pokemon region, just without the gym badges and the gyms, but one filled with stories that could never exist anywhere else. Red continued simping over Plumeria, and eventually, Plumeria and Marnie moved into the original clubhouse with me, Blaine, and Red. Our next resident was Tawny, and after looking at the wheel, I finally accepted the truth. I could not fit every Pokemon character on Orange Island. There was more than 100 names remaining, so the final resident needed to mean something. Red was the first Pokemon character created for Orange Island. There was only one person who could complete it, Blue. The original rivals were finally together. Guzma and Zinnia continued spending time together at restaurants. Their random friendship had quietly become one of the strongest connections on the island, but they weren't the only ship moving. Suddenly, Jessie realized that she had feelings for James. After decades of chasing Pikachu, she had finally noticed the man standing 14 centimeters to her left. Pokemon fans had waited years for this. Jessie attempted to blow James a kiss. The heart travelled towards him, and directly before it reached his face, James bent down and picked up a Cosmog. Ash and Serena were watching television together when their hands touched and Serena finally felt the spark. It was happening! She liked Ash so much that she gathered everyone in the house together to explain how incredible he was. Misty must have been sitting there thinking, "Thank you, Serena. This presentation has been extremely useful." At this point, Orange Island was no longer an experiment. It had grown into something I never expected. Friendships that should never have existed had become completely natural. Characters from different generations, regions, and stories were creating something new together. Tomodachi life had absolutely no connection to Pokemon, but these residents still carried every bit of its magic. The island had become completely consumed by romance, and unlike the rest of us, Guzma finally gathered enough courage to act. Guzma invited Zinnia onto the Ferris wheel. The same Ferris wheel I had built in the first episode. The romantic landmark that everybody previously treated like a public bathroom at a train station was finally being used for something important. Guzma looked at Zinnia. The friendship that began through one random interaction had grown into restaurant dates, daydreams, and genuine feelings. And finally, he confessed. This was the biggest romantic moment Orange Island had ever created. And just as Zinnia was about to respond,
Wait just a second. The one who really loves Zinnia is me.
Professor Oak appeared. Again. This man had already interrupted Red's confession to Plumeria, and now he had to climb into the Ferris wheel to announce that he was also in love with Zinnia. Oak doesn't study Pokemon, he studies opportunities. Guzma now had competition from a man who spent decades researching Pokemon, but apparently 0 minutes studying personal boundaries. But Professor Oak wasn't even the strangest person inside the Ferris wheel, because underneath the seat was me.
The one who double, super, triple loves Zinnia is me.
Why am I there? Go back to Skylar! Nessa already loves you. Why are you hiding beneath Guzma's confession like a two-timing goblin? I had no explanation, but Zinnia now had to make a choice. Professor Oak or Guzma.
Guzma, I feel exactly the same way. Let's give things a try.
And after everything they had experienced together, she followed her heart. Zinnia chose Guzma. Orange Island finally had its first official couple, and somehow, out of every possible combination of Pokemon characters, it was Guzma and Zinnia. The following day, the two spent time together inside Guzma's garage-style home. After completing a really fun mini-game, Guzma gathered his courage one more time and asked Zinnia an even bigger question. Before we see her answer, subscribe if you want more Pokemon experience and strange character stories. I love doing these things and I'd really appreciate the support, so thank you.
Will you marry me?
Yes. A squillion times, yes.
After weeks of chaos, Orange Island was about to make history. Zinnia said yes. Guzma and Zinnia were getting married. The wedding was beautiful. Brandon, Lily, Blaine, Tucker, and I attended. Red became the singer, which was an interesting choice considering his romantic experience consisted almost entirely of rejection and cloud-based hallucinations. But for once, nobody fought. Nobody interrupted. Professor Oak did not attempt to steal the bride. Just two characters from completely different corners of Pokemon celebrating something this island had created entirely on its own. When Guzma first wanted to become friends with Zinnia, I thought it was another random interaction. One of hundreds that would have happened and disappeared in the background. But that friendship became conversations, and those conversations became dates, and those dates became feelings. And that is what I love most about this island. Tomodachi Life doesn't know these characters. It doesn't understand their region, history, or personal boundaries beyond what I gave them. But then they're placed together. Completely new stories begin forming. Some are hilarious, some are deeply concerning, and some are unexpectedly beautiful. And some involve Red becoming hungry enough to declare war. Orange Island had grown beyond anything I expected. It was no longer only a Pokemon simulator. It had become its little own region. One built without gyms or badges, but filled with friendships, relationships, and the magic of watching these characters experience life outside of their original stories. And honestly, after everything that happened, I couldn't have imagined a better ending. So perhaps Orange Island's story isn't just finished yet.